Consider what the goals are of Power Mentor. That's a very powerful question because Power Mentor has been around for a long time, since 1999, and our focus really has been to develop future leaders, really with the focus on developing them to be resistant to corruption and having passion for their people. For me, what I feel God has called me to is to courageously stand for the oppressed and then develop these future leaders that can stand and withstand against all odds in these uncertain times that we're in. As far as accomplishments for the last trip in Kawthoolei, there are many. Our focus when we go on these trips is medical outreach, leadership development, and community building. But it's also a lot of strategic planning and planting seeds and developing relationships that are key with different groups. I'd say one of the greatest things that I saw this last trip was the Kawthoolei group and the new year that they had, and their just passionate love for their people and their desire and commitment to stand with their people to really work towards a free and self-determined Kawthoolei for our future. Probably the challenges is that we have leaders that have been co-opted by the corrupt and brutal Burma regime. In other words, they get business deals from them, and so they're more loyal to the enemy than they are to their own people, and that is just disgraceful. And when a good example this morning, we see on Facebook where Na Allah now is being prosecuted by the corrupt and brutal Burma regime for standing up for the people that are having their homes destroyed, and yet that is all under the NCA, and the corrupted leaders do nothing. So we developed a lot of relationships. We connected with DKBA. We connected with KNLA PC, and of course KNLA and KNDO, building relationships and trying to strengthen trust between these key groups that can stand together as one to get freedom for our people. How do I stay encouraged? It is challenging at times. Sometimes I'm facing some of the greatest struggles in seeing people suffering, which is very, very hard. The magnitude of knowing that hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands of people are suffering, having their homes destroyed under this corrupt, brutal regime, that they're dividing the Karen people so they can keep them divided so that they cannot get freedom. But mostly I stay encouraged because I have a very deep trust and faith in God, and the Lord always strengthens me. God's put this calling on my life to stand with our Karen people and to seek freedom and self-determination for them. So I stay focused on that. I try not to allow myself to get discouraged. I look for the silver lining in everything that I see. I try to focus on what is going right, how do we develop and build that, and not get bogged down on what's going wrong, because that is what starts creating that discouragement. And then I align myself with the right people. I align myself with Karen that love their people, that stand up with character, and that encourages me tremendously. What words do I have for our young Karen future leaders? I am awed by our Karen. The Karen people have taught me so much. I learn every day. They continue to just fascinate me in just who they are and their deep faith and trust in the Lord. The words that I would give them is, be very careful, because sometimes people will use things for example, they may say, to get freedom, we need to all just go to college and get degrees, and then that will get our freedom. But I've also seen that when people get educated, they begin to get greedy, and they begin to turn into the people that seek money, like the people that support the NCA, at the peril of their own people. So what I would say for young people is, learn to go against the grain, go against the tide. Don't be afraid of what people think about you. Worry about what God thinks of you. Stand up for your people. The reality is, if you're in Kawthoolei right now and you're in villages that are being targeted and attacked by the corrupt and brutal regime, trust me, you want people to come and defend you, not tell you, oh, hang in there, I'll pray for you. Keep in mind, prayer is an amazing thing, but prayer with no action is absolutely nothing. In James chapter 5, verse 16, the second portion of it talks about, the heartfelt and persistent prayer of good people. That's what accomplishes much. But consider that when we pray, it's not just asking God to do something. It's putting us in alignment with God so that we ourselves are poised to be at our best so we can act courageously at the same time that God is moving mightily through our prayer. And that's really key. So, it's easy to say, but remember, like when Jesus, one time somebody said, I'll pray for you. And he said, what's better, to pray for someone or to give them a drink of water? Right now, we have to act. We have to act to defend our people. There's a very narrow window, and it's becoming more and more narrow. And if we don't stand, we will lose. We will lose our people. We will lose our Kawthoolei. I believe that our young people are going to be the ones to lead in the future, and they have to be very careful to be as close to God as possible, not to allow people to corrupt them, because that is what the Burmese military does. Consider the fact is, like if you look at Kawthoolei, Mutu Sepo, nothing ever happens to them. That's because the Burmese generals already have them. They're more loyal to the Burmese generals than they are to their own people. Notice the people that they go after are the people that speak up for the truth and that stand up to defend their people. Na Aung Lao is a perfect example. What do? They imprison her because she's standing up, trying to empower our people. Look at General Nerda Bomia. They come after him. They always have threats against his life. In addition, General Bajahe, look at how they do everything they can to co-opt him and try to silence him. Look at how they put people that are close to him and they turn them and twist them and cause them to go and try to bring him down. So, these leaders are the ones they go after because those are the ones that actually love our people. The other thing I would say is we have to get it right is when people say, oh, everyone just get along, just unity, that'll work. The reality is this. The current leaders for the Karen people were never elected by our Karen people. They were put in there by their small group of friends. In the next election, we'll find the same thing. They're already planning and plotting, and they've already said that they're going to put Kawthoolei in, and they're actually going to this time call him president of Kawthoolei. And they're doing that as a counterfeit because they know that we've been seeking to have an election. Many want to vote for General Nerda Bomia to be president or Bajahe to lead the military. Whatever it may be, we need democratic elections. That means that all Karen can actually vote without having any threats of retaliation or anything. That's what's going to be the game changer. Until we do that, nothing's going to change. Nothing whatsoever will change. And that brings us into the question you asked, what's my message to the current Karen leaders? I would say the current Karen leaders, they're just disgraced and shameful. And I will tell you that for them, the day that they meet the Lord, I think that's when they're going to have realized that they betrayed their people. They did it for money, greed, lust for power. But the consequence for that is going to be unbelievable. Those leaders, if they want to save any face, they should step down. They should resign and allow the leaders that love their people and will defend their people from this corrupt and brutal dictatorship of the Burma regime. That's what they should do. The money that they get, all the bank accounts, I'm aware of many of the bank accounts with huge amounts of money, all of which could have been used to rebuild Kawthoolei in the millions. And these people are holding it for what? But yet they're storing up all these riches, and they use that to enrich the few people around them, while the masses suffer because of this brutal dictatorship. So that's my message to them. I have very little patience for them. I do not feel sorry for them whatsoever. When people say it's because they're not educated, oh, that's so not true. The reality is they've succumbed to greed. Remember what the Bible says, that the love of money is what corrupts. The lust for power and money corrupt. And that's what's happened here. The goal is when I see the paintings that our Karen people, they draw these paintings, they're just unbelievable. And they show the simple life. They celebrate the simple life of our Karen people. How peaceful they are farming and just out in the beautiful countryside of Kawthoolei. And when I see that, that is my goal for all Karen, to be able to live free and self-determined. My goal is for Karen all around the world one day to be able to return back to Kawthoolei, just like the Jewish people returned back to Israel, and that they defend their land, and that they realize to be Karen, it's a very high calling, very high calling. I believe that the Karen were scattered all over the world to teach people about that great, simple life. Never allow anyone to corrupt you. Never allow anyone to make you feel marginalized. The real reality why the corrupt and brutal Burma regime despises the Karen is because all the last 70, 80 years, all of that time, Karen people garnered favor with people. And the Burmese hated that. They hated that. And they've always done everything they can to destroy. The sad thing, they destroy Karen using other Karen. They corrupt. So I would say, consider this. When people have been corrupted and Burmanized, they're no longer Karen. They don't bring shame to our Karen people. They bring shame and dishonor to themselves. There's many sayings about the ancestors of Karen people saying, anyone that would bring harm to the Karen people will be cursed. And I believe that. I've seen people that have had bad things happen to them. People that try to peddle this corrupted NCA telling people it will bring freedom when they know very well that it will not. For Karen people that feel discouraged, I would say sometimes it's good to feel discouraged, because it's at those times we feel discouraged that maybe we consider and realize we can't do it on our own. We can't do it on our own. We must be close to God. We must ask Him. But we must be able to act individually and stand up with courage. Never, ever be afraid to stand up for what's right. Never be afraid to stand up for our people. To be encouraged, for me, I look at the pictures that we take every year we go there, and I look at the young people. If anything, when you feel discouraged, don't think about yourself. Think about your children and your children's children and their children, and what will come to be of Kawthoolei in the future. And that takes it and puts it in a whole different perspective. For me, I rarely can find times to feel bad about my own situations of stress at work or anything like that, because I know that everything that I go through is nothing in comparison to what our amazing Karen people that have never deserved any of this have to endure by this such corrupted and brutal Burma regime that is trying to rob them of their land, just like the other lands, Arakan, all of them. But also consider that now is the time. Now is the time for us to stand up and secure our borders like Arakan's done. Karen must expel all Burmese out of the Karen land. All the Burmese troops must be told, just like Arakan did. You have X amount of days to get out of our land, and they need to stand to that. Listen, we cannot allow them and give them permission to come and destroy Kawthoolei. But when we permit them to do these things, that's permission. What we permit, we actually promote. So we have to stand our ground. And we have to be united with the other ethnic groups that also are resisting this brutal, corrupt regime. Personally, I am very optimistic for the future of Kawthoolei, because I believe that God has His hand in it. And what God has planned, no man can undo. But don't forget, it does not give room for us to be lazy and complacent. We must rise up and stand now. If not, we ourselves will forever be disgraced for future generations when they look back on history and know that we were this close to gaining freedom, but yet we cowered and did nothing. I, for one, will not cower. I will stand firm. I will stand firm for our people. Why? Because they deserve it, and because that is what God compels us to do. May God bless you.